What's up guys, my name is Kyle Heilig, and I am not an expert, I'm just a dabbler. But today, I'm going to show you how to make an animated border, like this, or like this, or like, you know what? Let's just get into the video. Roll that footage. So the first thing you're going to do is open up Inkscape. You're going to go to File, go to Document Properties, and then you're going to change units to pixels, because who uses millimeters anyway, am I right? Once you have that set up, change your width to 1920 and your height to 1080, and then you can just close out of that. We're going to go to the left hand side, grab this square tool, I'm going to draw a rectangle, and you're going to go back and click on the select arrow. Up at the top, you're going to change your X and Y coordinates to 0 and change your width and height to 1920 by 1080. Next, we're going to make another rectangle on top of that. So just drag and drop, go down to the bottom and you can select a color. Just left click on what you want. Go back to your select tool and we want to offset this a little bit. So let's say 30 pixels. So 30 in the X, 30 in Y. Take 60 off of both dimensions, so we have 30 on either side. So we're going to do 1860 by 1020. And that'll give us a nice inset there. Select the inner rectangle, hold Shift, click on the outer rectangle. So you have them both selected. Go up to Path, click on Difference. And that'll cut out the center part. Now we're just left with the border. If we go up to Object, we can go down to Fill and Stroke. This will let us select our colors. Make sure you have your border selected. Go over to Stroke Style. Make sure your units are set to pixels again. And we're going to give it 5 pixel border. And what that does is just give it a little border to the border. Yeah, I know, it's silly, but we want to cut out the center color. So go down to your color tab, go over to this X and just left click there. If we want to change the color of the stroke, we can hold Shift and just click on any one of these colors and it'll change. I'm just going to change it to gray for now. Next, we just need to export it as a PNG. So we'll go up to File, Export PNG. Make sure you change your units to pixels. It'll just mess you up. Make sure you have your width and your height correct. We go to Export and just find a location to save it to. Now it doesn't save once you fill out that export. You'll still have to go down and click this button called Export. All right, next up, let's go ahead and change this back to a filled in border. Fill it in, and I'm going to get rid of the stroke. So I'm going to go back to the fill and stroke. We'll use this later on. So go ahead and export that. Next, I'm going to make a circular border. Once we get all these done, we'll go into Davinci Resolve and I'll show you how to set them all up. Just open a new file and we'll just do what we did before. Go down to Document Properties, change the units. This time I'm going to make it a 1080 by 1080. Grab the circle tool. You can hold Control to make sure it stays proportional. Drop it and we're going to offset it off the edge a little bit. So do 5 pixels off each of the sides, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to do 1070 by 1070. The reason for this is once you try and use this as a mask in OBS, anything touching the side will end up being screwed up in geometry and you'll end up with extra lines and you won't get that nice circle mask that you want. Once I have a circle, I'm going to click on it. I'm going to use this linked offset feature just to make a smaller circle. This comes in handy when you make your own kind of stuff and you just want to shrink down and punch out something smaller out of it. You won't be able to see it, it's at the bottom, but we're going to change the color. Go over here and move it to the top. Now I'm going to highlight both of them. Do what I did before. Go to Path, Difference. I'm going to erase that center color. Go to my stroke. I'll make it 5 pixels. And I'm going to change that border to gray. All right, export this. Now we have a border for our circle cam. We're also going to need to make a mask for our circle cam. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make another circle, fill it in, make our stroke 0, reset the dimensions here, 1070 by 1070. Okay, now we could export as is, but we might have some of the underlying border come through and that might mess things up. So we're going to put this on its own layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to go layer, add layer, call this one mask, add it. We'll click on this circle and we'll right click and we'll move to the mask layer. Now if we go to our layers, we can turn off the first one and we'll just have our mask that we can export as PNG. All right, that's all we need to do in Inkscape. Next, we jump into Davinci Resolve. All right, once you're in Davinci Resolve, go down to the little cogwheel, open up, just make sure your resolution is 1920 by 1080. Your frames won't matter because we're going to be converting this into an animated WebM file. Go to the Edits tab and we're going to go up to this Effects library. It might be turned off. You can just click it, it'll turn it on. Go down to this toolbox, Effects, and then drag and drop a fusion composition. Now, the default setting will be around 5 seconds and that should be plenty. We'll click on the Fusion tab. All right, once you're in there, you won't see anything except Media Out. And that's just our final clip. You're going to right click in this media pool, go to import media, and you just highlight anything you want to drag in there. We'll just start with the rectangle border, just drag and drop it into the workspace. Now, if we want to view what's going on, just go down and see these little dots. You can highlight them. There's a left and a right window. Just turn on left. There's our border. There's nothing connected to our media yet, so this will display blank. First thing we do is we can highlight our input, hit F2, rename it. We'll call it border. We're going to want something to go behind our border, like a gradient background. We'll just go here to border, click on it, bring that in, select our border. Let's change it from a solid color to a gradient, and we'll merge these two. Drag the output of the border onto the output of the background, and we'll merge them together. Now let's see what the merge node looks like. All right, the first thing you'll notice is it's filled everything in, including the inside. So we'll have to cut out this inner part. We could just resize our camera to fit inside there, but we really want this to lay over top, especially if we're doing something like a circle or some other more complex shape. The other thing we're going to need to resize this background at some point. So I'm just going to give some space. I'm going to highlight the background. I'm going to hit Control Space, and I'm going to add in a transform mode. A transform just lets me resize, move it around, do whatever I need to the background without it. Okay, now we can just go ahead and connect this to our media out. It'll look pretty much the same. What we'll need to do is we'll need to add in a mask to cut out this inner portion. So we'll go here to our rectangular mask. The mask won't work on its own. We'll also need to use a background node so that it has something to work with. I'll connect the output of this as a mask to the background, and then I will add in this background. Merge it. So now you can see there's a nice little square. It's not big enough, so I'm going to go on this rectangle mask. I'm just going to resize it. I can resize it there. I can also come in and mess with these. If I need to fine tune, I can just hover over this, left click and hold, and I can get some better control. All right, that looks nice, but it's a black background. We want no background. So we're going to come to this merge. This operator, instead of having over, we're going to click on this XOR and it's going to cut it out. So now we have a nice border here, but we haven't animated anything. So to animate it, we'll go back to frame 0. We'll click on transform, and what we'll do is we'll set a keyframe. And you set a keyframe by clicking on these little diamonds. When it's red, it means there's a keyframe set. And that just tells it, pay attention to that variable. And then when it gets to another point, that variable will be changed. So we'll go to the end of our timeline, frame 119, we'll click it again, we'll enter in 360. So it's automatically going to take it from frame 0 to frame 119, and it'll rotate it from 0 to 360. Now if we click on this loop, click play, you'll notice that the gradient is quite big enough. We'll stop, we'll go back to frame 0, we'll click on this transform, and we'll increase the size, make it 3, that'll cover everything. Now when we play it, you can see it covers everything, but you might notice that the gradient isn't very good. So we'll reset that, we'll go to background, and there's this gradient tab, we'll just move the gradient in. Now when I play it, you can see there's a nice gradient that goes around. So the last thing to do is just click on this deliver rocket, go over, give it a name, give it a location to save to, change it to individual clip, change to QuickTime, GoPro Cineform, change it to RGB 16-bit, and then go down to export alpha. And that's really what we want, so that we have a clean border with no background. Settings in here that'll get you alpha as well, but from my experience, this gets you the smallest file. We want a smaller file so we can convert it faster into a WebM. Click on Add to Queue, and then click on Start Render. Once you have that rendered, go to freeconvert.com, go to the MOV to WebM, find your file, and then just click Convert to WebM. Once it's done converting, just click on Download, and you can open it up to use it as an animated border in OBS. This is the same process, by the way, that you would use for making animated emotes or alerts. Create something, animate it, convert it to a WebM file, and then it's ready. All right, I'm not going to go to OBS quite yet. A few more animated borders. Then we can use whatever ones we want in OBS. So we're going to go back to the Fusion tab. Let's make the circle border. What we're going to do is we're just going to need to remove the rectangular components and replace them with the circular components. And we'll bring in the circle. We'll just merge it where that rectangle was. It's bigger than it should be, so I'm going to have to resize that. So I'm just going to add in a transform, control space, and then I'm going to resize it. And then for a mass rather than the rectangle, we're going to use this ellipse. And that's not the right size, so we're going to go ahead and add and transform that. I'm going to add it to the background. So now I'm going to resize that. Now what do we do with all this space out here? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to create another circle mask. Then we're going to invert it. I'm going to highlight them, copy, paste, I'm going to merge it in. I need to make sure I change this merge to XOR, and then I'm going to click on the ellipse, and I'm going to click invert. Go to the transform, and I'm going to start resizing that. Now you're ready to deliver that, export it, and you're good to go. Now what if we want something other than a gradient? What if we want a couple colors? Go back to our background and change it to a solid color. We want two solid colors, so I'm going to back these off, duplicate them, I'm going to merge them together. For red, we'll do a blue. Activate this merge on the left screen. Now they're overlapping, so I'm going to have to offset them from each other. This upper one to -1, bottom one to 1.5. Let them split there. Now we need to take this merge and transform it so that they can rotate together. So add in transform, activate the keyframe, go to the end, activate the keyframe, make it 360. We still have keyframes on these, and we don't want these to rotate anymore. Go to the start and ending, turn off keyframes for both of these. Now when we play it, they're rotating together, and you can see this nice circle going around. Now let's do some fun stuff. So let's go back to our rectangle border. We'll go back to this background. We'll change it to solid. We'll make it red. Nice Christmassy red. Looks Christmassy to me. Don't judge me. The only thing we're going to add to this is a text node. That seems kind of strange, but I want to go for a candy cane theme. So I want dashes, I want lines going around. So I'm going to add in this text, merge it. I'm going to add in a bunch of dashes. Text highlighted. We're going to go over to this layout. We're going to change this type from point to path. So that'll give us a path for the text to go around. And we're going to go and zoom in on the corners here. And we're just going to start creating a path. We're just going to hit all 4 of them. So we create a box. And just click on the one you start on to close the chain. Now you can kind of see where these ended up. I don't have nearly enough and they're kind of small. So we're going to change that. Go over to this 3rd tab here. And we're going to go down to size. We're going to make them taller, make them a little wider. We also probably want to change the spacing. These get off center. You can go back to this 1st tab. There's also a sizing option. And just the size on that 1st tab, you can move this anchor point and you can just kind of hone it in a little bit. Back to that 3rd tab, there's this option called shear. Put a slant on them in the X direction. Once you have it dialed into where you want, go on the 2nd tab, go down to this position on path, and we're just going to go to the beginning of our timeline. We'll add in keyframe, go to the end, add in the keyframe, and we'll run it and see what it looks like. Once you get dialed into where you want it, you can play it, adjust settings as needed. Now I know what you're thinking, but it's Halloween. Where's my Halloween? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Simmer down, Scrooge McDuck. I got you covered. For this, we're going to need a solid border. Remember how we cut out the center and just had the stroke lines around the edges, and that's what we've been using? We're going to use the full border, and we're just going to convert it into fog. So to do that, we're going to need a few different things. Fast noise, that's going to give us our fog look. We're going to want to add in a blur, add in brightness and contrast. And we'll probably need to add in a background so we can change the color. All right, let's click on the fast noise itself. It's kind of got this fog look to it. We can up the detail. We can increase the contrast. That looks brightness a little bit. So we don't want to add too much brightness in right now. We want to, we'll add that back in later. We'll just get a nice fog look right now. Take this, we'll make it as part of a mask to our background. And we're going to take that, we're going to go into our blur into our brightness and contrast. All right, so if we go into the blur, edit the blur size. This gives it a nice soft look on the frame. Go to our brightness and contrast and turn up the gain. That's looking pretty good. And what we want to do to animate this is we'll go to frame 0, click on our fast noise, and the seed is what we want. So we'll add a keyframe there, we'll go to the end, keyframe it, and then we'll just start scrolling through here until we get something that looks pretty nice. And there you go. You can tweak the settings however you like, turn down the contrast a little bit, maybe change the color, red fog or something. But that'll get you started. You do the same thing, you'll export it, convert it to WebM, and we'll bring it to OBS. So with that, let's go over to OBS. Okay, so now we're sitting here in OBS. What do we need to do to add the border? We'll just right click, go to add media source. Bring it up, make sure you click loop so that we can loop whatever file we bring in. Bring in your animated file, import your file. Okay, and there we go. Nice animated border. We can resize it, sit over top of our camera. All right, now what about the circle or any shape that's not a rectangle? For that, we need the border and the mask. First, we need to put our camera in a group. Left click, add group. Make sure you put your camera underneath the group. The reason for this, if we add the mask directly to the camera, it'll put it into every single scene. Right click on the group, not the camera. Go to filters, add in, apply image mask blend. And this is what it looks like if you're touching the sides. Remember I told you don't touch the sides in Inkscape?
Whoa, no touchy. No touchy. No touch.
This is what it looks like. Cuts out little chunks. And this is what it looks like when you keep it off those edges. You get a nice clean circle. Man, you guys don't know how many hours it took me to figure that out. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up button for Pete's sakes. All right, now that we have a circle mask in there, close that and go and change our media source to the circle. And there you go. You have a circle cam and a circle border. That's the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. If you liked it, hit a thumbs up. If not, well, you could do the other one too. Helps with engagement either way. Leave a comment below on anything else you'd like to see, and until then, go do some dabbling and beyond. I mean it. Shoo. Go away. This video's over. Don't hang around. Don't be like that. Don't be that guy.